Hey, it's Corey, and today I'm going to talk to you about something I'm really passionate about, and a lot of people ask me questions about it, and so I figured I might as well just make a video to address this one question. How do you practice? The art of practicing is unfortunately something that a lot of people don't really know about. Even myself, I went to school for a long time to learn music, and I didn't really get how to practice until I was almost done with my school. Basically, the whole point of practicing is to prepare you for when you're going to be playing either for a performance or to be able to play a song in its entirety. So what you put into your practice is what you're going to get out in your overall performance. Now, a big misconception about practicing is that people think you have to do it for hours and hours and hours every single day. That's just not true. Actually, it's better to practice for short little bursts of time of really purposeful, planned out and really thought out work time than practicing for an hour a day. What I always tell everybody that I work with ukulele is try not to practice more than maybe 10 to 20 minutes a day, or at least per session. If you feel really strongly that you need more than that per day, then make sure you have a little bit of time between your practice sessions. So knowing that you're working with a window of 10 to 20 minutes of practice time a day, that shakes out to only being about maybe 50 minutes to like an hour and a half a week. Your goal is to make sure you're playing frequently enough to maintain calluses on your fingers and overall muscle memory, but not playing too much that A, you're gonna get frustrated and not want to continue, or you end up actually practicing too much but not the right thing, so you're establishing bad habits in your playing. This 10 to 20 minute window works best when you also set a plan for yourself and go into your practice session with an intention. This is what I would recommend for you as a practice schedule. Day one, just get familiar with the chords. Find a song sheet for it, or if you can listen to a song and understand the chord progressions yourself, map it out so you have a visual representation of that song along with the lyrics. On this day one of practice of the 10 to 20 minutes, you should also be listening to the song quite a bit. I know a ton of people that try to play a song without really actually knowing it very well, and it just doesn't end up being effective because the original song is going to inform your overall playing. So once you have your song sheet or your map of the song written out and you've played it about 5 times, stop there. That's the end of day one for you. Your day two should probably take place the next day, if at all possible. If you have one day in between your day one and day two, that's totally fine, but don't try to go any more than one day in between your day one and day two. On day two is when you're gonna look at the chords. You might lay through the song a little bit just on the chord changes to get familiar with it, but if it's a new song where you have chords that you've never played before, you're going to wanna just focus on getting those chords really learned on that second day. Also, we know from studies that when you have intermittent practicing with any kind of content, not just music, when you have it a little bit over multiple days, it's going to be more effective than a lot of playing over one day and then waiting multiple days before you play again. When you wait that amount of time, it's going to be like you're approaching that chord or that strumming pattern for the first time again if you wait multiple days rather than playing it a little bit each day. So using those chords, start thinking about where they are in the song. Again, if you have the song sheet, that kind of does a lot of the work for you, but if you're mapping it out yourself, you're gonna really need to do a lot more listening to the music to really find where those chords lie. Some sites like Ultimate Guitar and Ukulele can be really helpful for this. However, I find in my experience that the chords aren't always the most reliable, and often it's just people kind of putting out what they happen to play, so it's not always a guarantee that it's going to be really accurate. If you are someone looking for a bunch of songs to be able to play, I have like over 200 song sheets on my Patreon now that kind of range from really easy songs to a little bit more difficult songs, so you're welcome to check that out on my Patreon there. As I mentioned before, your initial playthrough should just be playing on the chord changes. Don't even worry about playing in time. Just get an overall feel for how the song is mapped out. This would also be a really good time to identify the verse, the chorus, any pre-choruses or post-choruses, the bridge of the song, and any intro sections or outro sections. This is all, of course, going off of the mentality of kind of a pop song structure. However, I find most people that are at the beginning level of ukulele playing and maybe don't have a practice routine established, they're going to be playing mostly pop songs. If that doesn't directly apply to you, let me know what you're playing down in the comment section, and I can give you some recommendations on how to incorporate those types of songs into your practice too. Day 4 would be when you are comfortable enough with the general structure of the song, you've listened to it multiple times, you can play those chords without directly looking at the chord chart, and you can play the strumming pattern consistently while moving through the chords. At this point is when you're actually going to start approaching the song. When you play through the song the first time, like I always say in my tutorials, I always recommend going through it in time with a metronome, but just on the chord changes to start, then move up to playing on the beat, and then move into whatever your strumming pattern happens to be. Of course, if you're a little bit more of an intermediate to advanced player, you might be able to condense some of these steps into your day 1 or your day 2. For instance, when I approach a new song, I do all these same steps, they just might take less time. And then I'll go into playing through it. And even when I'm doing this condensed version, I still start with playing on the chord changes, moving to the beat, and then to the strumming pattern with my metronome. Again, these are just really helpful habits to get into that eventually when you've done these things so many times, you're going to be able to condense it like I do, for instance, when I practice. You might get through the song maybe 3 or 4 times, but what's really important on this day 4 practice that you're going to have to be very honest with yourself about is making sure that any small mistakes you're making note of it, maybe even circling sections on your song sheet so you know to come back to it and do some isolated practicing on those sections. Basically, that's what your day 4 should be. It should be playing through it a couple times so you can see what tricky parts there are in the song for you. So then on day 5, you can start doing some pointed practice with those sections. I often will also look for any patterns of chord progressions that I see and we'll practice through those on the strumming pattern. That way, whenever we do get to a full playthrough, it's as smooth as possible the first time. The reason for this is because anytime you're going to play something, you are practicing. And that means even if you play it wrong, you're still practicing. There's an old adage that says practice makes perfect. Well, it's not true, unfortunately. Practice makes permanent. So whatever you do in your practice will ultimately be what you're going to do in your performance. On a day 5, when you're doing this isolated practice and then playing through the song maybe once or twice again, this is a good opportunity for you to actually record yourself. Having those recordings are going to make you a better player because there are going to be things that you notice about your playing that you are unable to analyze and see when you are currently playing that you'll be able to catch in your recording, either just from an audio recording or a visual video. At that point, you kind of just have to think of what you need to be most successful with your song. Depending on your skill level, you might find that even after kind of following a 5-day plan with a day or 2 of rest in between things, you might have to start looking back at certain things. Maybe when you look at your video or your recording, you start noticing, my chords aren't sounding as good as I want them to. Well, then go back to your chord work. If you notice that your strumming pattern has some weird gaps in between the transitions, it's time to go look at that strumming pattern a little bit more. From there, you kind of have to customize it to work best with what you need. And of course, this is all taking into consideration that you're picking a song that's at your actual song level. It's the #1 thing I find beginner players really struggle with is actually just picking songs that are right for them. They often want to play their favorite song, but their favorite song might just be too difficult for them to be able to play. This is especially true, I think, when it comes to songs that you hear on TV, video games, and cartoon shows, because they're the ones that often aren't actually that easy to play that I find people want to play the most. And it's unfortunate because I want people to be able to play them, but it just is the matter of fact that it's going to take time to be able to get to that level. So if you're a beginner player and you're watching this and you're thinking, oh, this seems like a lot of work in order just to get practice, it's because it is. It's going to take work for you to advance your skill. And there might always be outliers and people that can just pick up a new instrument and play it with ease, but don't try to compare yourself to those situations because it's not the rule, it's the exception. I hope this helped a little bit with how you can plan out some of your practice time. If you have any questions or you need more specific feedback, make sure to comment down below and like the video, because then I can give you the additional help you need or do a follow-up video about practicing that will answer some of those questions. Additionally, if you're looking for some guides and different worksheets that can take you through different practices, I would really suggest my ukulele practice series. It's about 7 videos that just give you little exercises that you can incorporate into your daily practice that will ultimately really advance your skills. In addition to that, on my Patreon, I also have guided note sheets for the different videos that I have in terms of practicing, as well as blank templates that you can use for your own practicing and song study. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day and I'll see you next time. Bye!